All right. Let's start this podcast with a woman that I met last year and has really impacted, I have to say, my life in a very profound way. And even though we only spent a week together, I would say it was really transforming until today, a really big part of my life. And I want to honor this beautiful woman with an introduction. So first of all, welcome to Leadership Confetti, the podcast where we uncover the colorful layers of modern leadership, raw, embodied, and real. That is really important to me, where we appreciate all the unique colors and confetti explosions that the human experience has to offer. And today's guest is someone who has not only transformed countless lives, but also redefined what it means to truly lead from within. So I'm really honored, Rupda, that you're here and that we are speaking together. And Rupda has lived and worked around the globe, in Europe, India, the US, Australia, and right now also she told me about Mexico. So all other parts of the world. That's beautiful. She's touching the hearts and lives of leaders, change makers, and seekers alike. With over 49, 50 of the dedicated years in self-development, trauma healing, and body leadership, Rupda brings a unique and deeply rooted wisdom to every room she enters, and I can only agree to that. Her journey began in the late 60s, born into a time of radical thinking and revolutionary approaches to human psychology. Growing up in a conscious community, she was immersed in spiritual teaching, meditations, and group therapies from a very young age. For over 2 decades, she sat with spiritual teacher, a time that profoundly shaped her life and continues to influence her work today. So Rupta is certified in somatic experiencing, NLP, nonviolent communication, and so on and so on. It's amazing everything that you're doing. And for everybody who's interested to read about Rupta, I'm gonna put the website and everything, of course, in the show notes. But what makes her truly exceptional is not only her knowledge, but her presence. A blend of lightness, humor, and radical depth. And she brings clarity to complexity and reminds people of the power of authenticity, embodiment, and emotional courage. So welcome, Rupda, to Leadership Confetti. And in today's conversation, I really like to explore with you the body within leadership, because it's such an important topic that this comes more into the world of businesses, of leadership, and has been, I think, a very neglected part. So let's bring this more into focus. And also, most likely, we talk about, the topic of safety and connection and authenticity in your leadership style. Rupta, you lived in spiritual communities and you have done a lot of things in self-development, but probably there's still something that also triggers you. And that is something I would love to ask you. What is one of the latest thing where you noticed that is something that was triggering me? Because we all have that, and we all have to see, how does our inner leader work with that? How does our inner leader respond? So I want to give you the word, and I love to
absolutely.
yeah,
Well,
know
first of all,
how's that
Vera,
for
thank
you.
you for having me on Leadership Confetti. It's a delight to be here. I know that we're going to go on a little journey together, and I look forward to that. So what triggers me today? And like you said, it has been a 49-year journey of my own personal development and leadership development. And because I'm born in the late 60s, just to give your listeners some context, and, the communication piece for me is really an important piece. And people honest with where they're at is really important for me. So, I can see that when people ultimately bend the truth in order to get something, to get a need met or to get what they want. But recently, it has come up where somebody had done it in order to, kind of compete with another person. And it had nothing to do with me, but I could see that I got triggered by it, because we're all doing this kind of work to be the best that we can be of who we are. Yeah. The version of ourselves that is the most conscious version. And so when we slip into that unconscious place, even after having done all this work, which can happen, I'm very aware of how that can happen, by the way, because I'm working with thousands of people for decades around the globe. And it did trigger me partly because it was in my team, and we all talked about it and cleared it. And because I'm a leader, of course, I have methodologies in how we keep the space clean in the environment so that we can always talk about these things. And when there's accountability, that feels good. But when there's no accountability, of course, that's a challenge. because then it's a blind spot for the individual. Even if everybody in the team recognizes, that person A is, you know, um, doing X, Y, Z, and they're not taking accountability, that can be a really challenge. Yeah. But for me, a trigger today can be something that I see it, I feel it, I bring recognition to it in myself, my trigger. And of course, often it's triggering something very old as well. And then I'm able to take a conscious step in it with myself and before I even speak to the individual, because ultimately I want to speak to them, as I always say in my facilitators training, in a language that supports connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. And that is, of course, also something that leaders are facing. Yeah. Like, I can see that a lot. I know you have a team and there's someone you have has a completely different personality maybe and personality type. And you really see, okay, there's something going on in the communication, something that's triggering me and that stands in the way of me being the leader, being here, yeah, for the person. And what do you think, what would be, applying what you just said, what would be like steps that a leader can take when they notice that in the dynamic with their team
When
member?
someone's not taking accountability, or if they're bending the truth, or some behavior is like a blind spot for them, and other people are aware of it or impacted by it and are struggling with it or challenged by it, as a leader, the first thing I do is I wouldn't personally put that person on the spot in front of other people, especially if they're not even aware of it. So my first approach is to take them aside and have a one-on-one talk with them. If it's something that has been going on and has been developing over time, and for whatever reason I didn't know about it early on, or let's say a leader didn't know about it, wasn't aware of it, then I would take that person out for a coffee, even though I don't drink coffee, but it's a metaphor for let's have some one-on-one time together. And I would ask what's going on for them. And I would love to know what's happening for them, because sometimes we don't know what's going on in their shoes. And it might be that they weren't able to make their rent for the last 2 months, or a family member passed away, or they're struggling or challenged with something else, a health condition. We don't know, right? So that helps me already, instead of going into assuming, yeah, to just get a landscape of what's happening with them, the internal environment of them. And then from there, I can say, are you aware that a few people have come, or, if they have come to them directly? If they haven't, I can say, some people have come to me. I neutralize it so that even if it's one or two people, I have to be very mindful. I don't name those people unless it's absolutely necessary, where it's an abuse of some sort, and then that's another whole nother story. And I'm not having to deal with that, thankfully, but of course
Yes.
companies do, where I then ask with them, it seems like
Yeah.
we have some challenges here, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts on that are. My objective is to use a language always that supports connection and invites a feeling of safety and trust, so that they can slowly open up. And by me being honest and open with them, it gives them permission to do so. Then my next step in that, if they can finally come to a place to go like, okay, yeah, I can see that maybe I didn't understand this, or maybe I feel misinterpreted or misunderstood there, but I can also see their side of it, and so on and so on. And then I ask them, are you okay? This is an important step. Are you okay that we come to the table with whoever those people were, if it's only one person or multiple people, so that we are all heard in it together? And I'll tell you why I do this. Because if I do the resolution here with them, and then I go back to the origin of who brought the concern forward, or the complaint forward, and I do the resolution with them, it doesn't, then it's kept between me and them and me and them. But when I bring everyone to the table, the clearing and cleaning up is done with the collective field. Yeah. And that's that final step. It's really
Yes.
important. So the other person can have, when I say somatic for your listeners, even though I assume everybody knows it, but I'm aware some people don't, through the body, when we take a breath and when someone really says, hey, I'm sorry. You can feel it, right? So when you're in that space and someone says, hey, I'm sorry,
Yes.
and I can see their whole breath is registering that, and finally going, God, now I feel seen, heard, and now it's going to start building a little bit more trust and rapport between these two people. Without that step, it's kept between the leader here and the leader here, and it's still held suspended energetically between these two people. So it's something, it accelerates that connection and
Yeah.
bonding or rebonding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, what I'm also hearing from that is, yeah, you have to create safety. That is really important. You have to create a safe container, right? In the communication, hey, you're safe to tell me what's standing in the way between you and me, and really approaching it with empathy and getting away the own, let's say, the ego mind, the triggers, and putting it a bit on the side and being like, okay, I'm gonna put this behind, like a bit to the back, let's say, and I'm gonna have a conversation with you and really do my best to see you. And what I see happening there, and that's the other thing, and I'm curious what you think about that. Is of course the step for that to happen. A leader has to feel safe within him or herself, and also be connected with the body as well. So, and I see a lot of disconnection happening with the body, that it's all here and the body is disregarded. And then in the communication, what you said, right? The communication that supports connection is suddenly not there. It's all about trying to justify something and trying to assume or to make right and all of that stands in the way. And I'm wondering, how do you approach, or how can a leader connect more to their body and create safety so that this conversation can actually take place? So what needs to happen
Yeah, this is
before
a
this
nice question. I
conversation
like
can
that.
take place?
The primary relationship that we have on this planet is the one that you have with yourself. And it's not often, sadly, the one that we make a priority for, even though I believe we really do need to do that because it's the most important relationship. And you speak to yourself more than anyone you do in your lifetime. That's self-talk. And getting to know yourself and getting to know your inner climate and getting to know your emotional intelligence, getting to know your physical well-being, your physiology, your mental health, the balance of all of this. Yeah, because, I work with these three intelligence, and that's a lot, of course, we do in the training, which is the head center, heart center, and belly center. And that belly center is the body. And another word we refer to, of course, is the somatic. Yeah. And to be able to feel safe is one of the most fundamental feelings that humans have, is to feel safe, because it touches on our survival wounding. And it also has many other areas where around abuse and neglect and reject and all sorts of things. So to feel safe creates a registration in your body. It actually has a kind of landing inside of you where you start to go, aha, I'm here. My breathing is calm. My muscles are relaxed. My thoughts might be slowed down. My emotions feel like beautiful soft waves. It's like not that full on, emotionality where we can't really hold the turmoil. There's this kind of balancing and groundedness inside of us. We feel stabilized. So that happens when we start to develop a healthy relationship with ourselves. And to have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we need to have a healthy self-talk. That self-talk just can change the climate. You can already, so much science comes out from what happens to the brain when you put a negative self-talk, how it changes the chemical responses and how it can change a reaction in your whole body, your nervous system. You can even contract. You can actually start to feel tension, sleepless. You have one negative thought and it can keep people up at night. You know that. So that is one of the primary ways that people start to feel safe within. And from landing in themselves and starting to feel safer, I'm home in myself, a sense of solidity and presence starts to come. And then from there, that's what I call alignment. Alignment, and then to be able to lead, that's the ultimate place to lead from.
Beautiful. Yeah, when you're saying this, I'm already, I feel like I'm getting calmer, I'm connecting more to myself, I'm breathing slower, and yeah, feeling home in oneself. I think that is a feeling that, yeah, lots of people are longing for. I really like, yeah, lots of people, but also, yeah, as you said, that it's so important within leadership to feel home in oneself. How do I really know that I'm home in myself? How do I know that this is
There's a
happening?
beautiful thing what meditation brings, yeah, which has been around for thousands of years, and now finally the Western culture
Mm,
is adopting this more as a lifestyle. And what it brings is going from doing mode into listening mode and slowing down and tuning in. Because we're so outward oriented, so we go inward oriented. And the more we go inward oriented, the more we start to feel this almost like a homecoming. And that homecoming, when we start to feel wholeness inside of us, then nothing feels like it's lacking. We don't feel like FOMO doesn't exist there, comparison doesn't exist there, and whatever other qualities that take us away from that I am enough. Yeah. We feel a sense of wholeness where nothing is lacking. There I am. And you can drop in meditation, and you can change your alpha states, your theta states, yeah, delta, and all this to this place where you feel connected, so connected, where you feel you're part of all and everything. Now that it actually exists, they measure these things. I'm not inventing this. Yeah, it's all science-based as well. And when we start to feel that, the whole physiology of our body changes, and it changes our state, not just our mental state, our emotional state and physical state. And that's really ultimately where we start to feel at home. Yeah.
Yeah, like exactly how important meditation is, how important also before this, I was like 15 minutes sitting with myself, connecting to myself, so that I can be here fully present. And when I'm working with my clients, or when I'm working with leaders, I see often this resistance to go there. Or like, Vera, this is not for me, this check-in. Like I don't want to check in into my emotions, or like how am I doing, and just sitting there. No, this is boring. Or recently, like a leader said to me, I never experienced boredom. I never experienced that. And I think I said, that's actually a good thing to experience boredom. And this person was like, no, I don't think this is good. I think, yeah. And that's what I'm seeing a lot. One struggle that leaders have a lot, of course, is time. They're running, running. And out of this energy of running, going from one meeting to another meeting and being so stressed, and also a lot of belief patterns, I think, is like, yeah, I have to do. And then, yeah. And also another person said to me, yeah, I went to all these time management meetings and all these things I did, but nothing is changing. So I'm wondering, also in terms of stress, in terms of managing your time, how does the body, or how do you approach this when a leader comes to you and says, like, I'm stressed all the time, I'm running from meeting to meeting, there's so much going on. How do you
I
approach
just want to
this?
say something to that really quick. And I'm going to answer that because it's really important what you're saying. I've just come out of TUM University here in Munich. I'm still in Munich right now, and I've had the possibility to talk to a bunch of students there. And they're part of the Members and More's Startup Entrepreneur Society. It's a beautiful organization that has many members in it, and they're all budding founders wanting to start up new companies. Yeah. And actually, I'm also part of supporting Sigma because I go to the conference there, which is another a beautiful international organization for entrepreneurs and founders. And they're very young, and they're all wanting to start their, new companies. It's beautiful. And actually, both of these bodies of people have the same question, which is, when do you know it's enough? Because they're chasing that, let's say, unicorn. I'll use it as a metaphor. They're chasing the next thing. And even when they make a great company, or even a kind of semi-good company, they're off to the next, and then they're off to the next, and they're off to the next, and there's always a way to be better and be better and be better. So it's this constant adrenaline, and their whole regulatory system is almost out of whack. And some of them are doing 70 hours a week, and many of them used to idealize people like Elon Musk because of his, insane sort of schedule. I mean, Elon Musk still sleeps on the sofa at night. He doesn't go home, he's full on schedule. I don't think that that's actually a healthy way to live. So I was sharing actually with both these member groups that, that your definition of success is really important. It's going to determine your time management. So when I was in TUM University the other day, I was saying to them, if success is only about outer prosperity, then you will burn out. You will burn out, if not on the first startup, on the second, and if not on the second, on the third. Yeah. And if that is success for you, then, you have to determine if that's okay. If success is for you to have prosperity on the outside and on the inside, then your time management is going to be different. Then you're going to prioritize your time. Then you're going to be saying, actually, I need to be able to have time out for myself so that I learn how to regulate my nervous system. And why is that important? Because when you know how to kind of bring up the parasympathetic so that you can bring yourself to a calm state. You know how to deal with stress. You know how to deal when your cortisol levels go high. You know how to regulate yourself so you're balancing the busy. And this is really important because then your quality of life will be different. But if you're going to be one of these people who want to be a Musk, so to speak, where you're constantly chasing, and you're prioritizing your work more than your play, joy, then your body's going to take a big hit. And it, not only your body, your mental health as well.
Where does that come from? Like, I'm wondering, like, why are we why are we like this? Why are we running and running? Where's the root cause?
Yeah.
Where does
You know,
that come
there
from?
will be people who speculate on this, but for me, coming back to my experience of having worked with so many people over the years, there's a common denominator. And the common denominator is people have that feeling inside of I'm not enough or I'm not good enough, depending on how they frame that sentence. Yeah. And you can be a CEO of big companies, a big founder, you know, you can be a success at the top. You can have all the houses in the world and all the cars and the biggest bank account and be at the very top of that and feel empty on the inside or feel isolated or alienated, or you can feel even depression and even suicide. Yeah. And why do they get there, even though that's all happening at the same time? There's also another thing that's really big is they don't feel themselves. Yeah. So they don't feel the joy of their accomplishments because they've been workaholics. They've been so ambitious to get higher, 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 more, 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 be the best, be the best, be the best. And when I look at Elon Musk, I'm just going to be really blatantly honest with you. If that is success for you, great. Happy days for you. But I can see in Elon Musk, he doesn't know how to rest, doesn't know how to breathe. And I can also see that for him to really be still and to feel is probably a rare thing for him. And to feel his children and the joy of that connection with his children is going to be very, very rare, slither of rareness. Because I'm dealing with people's nervous systems exactly like that. I get to work in and out with different CEOs and founders and entrepreneurs, and they can't actually feel. The kid runs to them and they can't even feel because they've been so numb and high on adrenaline. The interesting thing is this is coming back very early on in their life, in their childhood, where we get very driven because there's this messaging we got early on when we were little that we are not enough. Somewhere in that journey, and it usually happens in the first 7 years, and I often say in the first 7 years, what happens to you is going to dictate the next 70 years of your life. When you see someone super ambitious, it often speaks to a place where either A, the father or mother was super ambitious and they want to model that because they think only if I'm going to, if I'm going to get mom or dad's love, then I'm going to be, I have to be like them, or, I'm not going to be loved and appreciated unless I become the greatest at sports in school or high grades or whatever. And then I get dad's recognition or pride or mom's approval, whatever. So it's almost like there's already feeding that information. And then you do get parents who are really focused on their performance of their child early on. So you can already see the mindset of implicit in that the messaging is I'm not enough as I am. And that is going to create a particular wounding. Now, they might not be ambitious. They might go in another direction. But the point here is it's not that it's not okay to want your child to do well. It's the very subtle remarks. In some cases, it's pressure. In some countries, that's what they do. They pressure their little kids. But in others, it can be really subtle. Kids just take that after compounds after years, and then they strive in order to get validation, value, that they matter, that they're seen, all sorts of reasons why they do that. And when I'm at the top, then you're really going to see me. And I have people whose parents aren't even alive, and they still got that mechanism running in them because it's so strong.
But so if somebody has been living their whole life like this, and they don't even know that they're disconnected from that, they don't even know, how do they take the step to be like, okay, now how do they realize that? Because I think many people are running around, many leaders, and they don't even know that they're so disconnected. They don't even know how it is to actually really feel alive and feel all these beautiful emotions that are there and have this aliveness. I see when and this is also part of my mission. I want to bring more color into business, more life, more aliveness of these beautiful, emotions that we have. But people don't even know how to live a life that is disconnected. They don't even know that they're disconnected. So how if somebody's listening right now, like a leader, and how can they understand that this is happening and that maybe this is also a way to like look back into their childhood, and also how important that is to have a look at that. And to at least look once, and also take the time for yourself. When I'm talking to leaders, I'm asking this question: have you ever traveled by yourself? Have you ever been just with you? No. No, that's also, again, that's boring. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't do that. So yeah,
Yeah.
how does
Beautiful
one
question.
understand
And
that?
you know, when I mentioned earlier, and when I work with the three centers of intelligence, most people are top heavy in the heads. And the head has two domains, the conscious, unconscious. So that, of course, you know, we are between consciousness and unconsciousness because we've got a lot of the subconscious functioning. There's another part to that, but I'm happy to talk about that later. And then we have the heart center of intelligence and the belly, which represents the body center, because the body has its own wisdom, of course, right? So when people are disconnected from their feelings, that is quite an indicator. And you'll be amazed at how many leaders are on adrenaline, high functioning. They have anxiety, maybe they have panic attacks, maybe, or they just override with extreme sports, and they do extreme lifestyles. They're very tight and tense in their body. That's where the body, I carry zero tension in my body. And that's because I know how to self regulate. But some of these people are having tightness and tension in their body, or insomnia, or have migraines, and then they lack the capacity to really feel, or they feel numb inside, or even worse, they feel dead inside, empty. There's a void. And so they keep getting the big next thing for a hit of adrenaline, whether it's extreme sports or buying a big house or doing something kind of outside of the box to push that any kind of feeling sensation to come in. So that's usually an indicator. You don't have to be extreme on that end, but to not feel the full kind of tapestry of emotions, where we can only feel so much or feel very little at all, or in the worst case, numb, that's a big indicator. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So important to look at that, and to also realize that for oneself. Yeah, I have a lot. Of course, before I was like, okay, what? There's so many questions I would have for you. What is something for you personally that you believed about leadership that is true, but you don't longer believe that today? And has something shifted for you?
Yeah,
I'm
I actually
curious.
used to believe many, many years ago, about 30 years ago, I used to believe that you have to have all these big accolades on the wall and have years in university and have some big, I don't know, story behind you in order to be able to step into leading and to guide and support people. So I held myself back for quite some time, even though I was, doing many different things. I did events all the time, holding people and supporting people and guiding and leading. Yeah. But there was something in me that I think held myself back to a certain degree. And once I got that, what actually a leader that I would want to go to, if you ask me what kind of leader would I want to go to, I realized that actually I'm not interested in all the certifications that they've done. I'm interested, especially those that have to go to university for 4 or 5 years. I'm interested if they embody themselves, if they're connected to themselves, if they're in alignment with themselves, if how they speak and how they move and how they guide feels real, authentic. That's the kind of person I'm more interested in engaging with, because I know that they can really hold me. They're not got a great big certificate saying I've been to a big university, check me out, and yet they're bouncing everything off of little bits of exercises maybe from a book and so on. Great. No, it's like I can see that has its place, and I really want to know that you have gone to the depths of yourself in such a way where you can really hold me in the depth of myself when I'm facing a life challenge. So once I got that, I realized, okay, I don't, I actually have, I have life experience And I realized I have the best university of all because I was raised with philosophy as my background. I was raised in a personal development environment. So I was very fortunate. My whole upbringing was an education towards leadership. And I realized I was kind of holding myself back by the idea of how I thought it needed to look. And once I had that realization, there was an internal celebration and maybe even a little confetti too.
Yeah, definitely. I I can totally resonate with that. Like, I also thought, okay, right now I'm guiding around 40 leaders, and I said, okay, I have to go maybe do another master on leadership. And I was like researching all these schools and masters. Now I think, luckily I'm going to your facilitation training. So I think that will help me to be even more embodied in myself and be more centered as well. So I'm really looking forward. But I also realized I'm like, no, I have everything already in my toolbox and I can
Wonderful.
run with that. It's okay. I don't need the next communication tool, the next this is the next model or something. No, I can see what my body is and my the wisdom of my body is telling, and I can go with that. And everything else comes step by step. So yeah, I can
Beautiful.
definitely resonate with that. What you are saying. Yes, I'm also wondering why leadership in general. I mean, before you already said my whole path has, let's say, prepared me to work with leadership. I mean, there can be all these different topics. Why leadership? Why is this a
Well,
topic close to your heart?
when I look at what's going on in the world today, I truly believe it's because of fucked up leadership. I really believe it's from poor leadership, from leadership that is very centric oriented and sadly very unconscious and very greed, power hungry kind of leadership. And when we take a step back and look at it from at least from where I'm standing, having worked a lot with conscious leadership, to really help people to move from a completely different place within themselves and also in how they support others. I can see that this kind of work, if that was implemented in many of these kind of areas where you see really messed up leadership today, it would make such a big difference, big difference. And so that was, even though I was hesitant in the beginning,
Yes.
but I had so many people asking me, how do you do what you do? Can you teach me? And that was the birth of the training about 7-8 years ago, whenever it was. And I said, okay, yeah, it is about time. Really, when you look at the world today, where we are is because of poor leadership, in my view.
Where do you see this messiness? Where does it come up a lot? Is it in the communication? Is it like a
Yeah.
ego? Where does it come
I'll
up a
tell
lot,
you,
this messiness?
because again, I work with so many personalities, and I've got so much data behind me over the
Yes.
decades and the thousands of people and the different cultures, yeah, because of different countries. And what I can see is that when people get more and more and more higher up in leadership, the more and more power they get. And when power starts to come more and more into the mix, they have, of course, a duty and a responsibility to hold that power with absolute respect. What often happens in certain sectors of our, you know, planet, yeah, and a classic one is the politicians, yeah, is when they get that power, it becomes distorted and they misuse that power because the very ground environment of how politics has been foundationally built has been already set up in a way that it's really hard for a politician to stay very clean and green because there's so many kinds of behind the scenes things happening in what is expected of them. So it's very easy for a politician to lose sight of the very initial goal that they came in. Maybe they genuinely wanted to change the world for better. And I know people today, especially in certain parties, that are really doing it and they're staying with it, conscious, aware, beautiful people. And there's also some people in different countries, different politicians that have lost that sight. And when they lose that sight, in my view, and it's not just in politics, it can be in corporations because they're the next big decision makers. Of course, they can even be bigger decision makers in some countries, is that when that power gets misused and that person has so much power that they can use it for, without consciousness, let's say it like that, that's when it can get really messy. And if they don't do their inner homework meaning look at themselves, look at their part, have empathy, be respectful, take accountability, be responsible, there's a criteria of being a healthy leader, then what happens is they don't listen in the same way. They don't care in the same way. They have their own agenda. And the worst kind of leader, in my view, is a narcissistic leader, because at that point, it's only about them and whatever it is they want to get. So that's a danger zone. And it doesn't matter if it's a country, someone leading a country, or someone leading a corporation or a company. Keeping ourselves, cleaning house internally is important. And that's how I lead my team and my company. We have to keep cleaning house. We have two primary, obviously, products or services. I don't even know what to call these things today. And one is the leadership training, and the other one is the deep dive retreat. Yeah. So in the deep dive retreat, for example, we have a team of people that when everybody who's participating at the end of that long day, everybody goes back to their respectful accommodations, and we as a team do a sharing. And we share about what's happening for us. And even in the morning, before we start again with all the participants coming into the retreat, and we kick off the next day, we again get up extra earlier and we share together. How are you doing? What's your inner climate like? If they have an activation towards a team member, or they have an activation, something that's happening at home, or, going on with themselves, they have a support field to support them in whatever they're facing, if they're facing anything. And if they are in conflict or struggle with any member in that team, including myself, we have that possibility to talk about it openly and honestly. And because of that transparency, it's in real time. We're really doing the work. The very thing that we're asking people out there, the participants who come to the deep dive retreat, we're also doing it ourselves. So that by the time we come and we stand in front of you, we've done all this work with ourselves. Yeah, we've cleaned house with each other. We've cleaned house on the side. We're not carrying things. We're not resentful. We're not in separation. We're not in the pain body of where do I belong? I feel outside. There's so many woundings that happen when you bring teams together. And so you need to, when you really do this kind of real authentic work, everybody wants authenticity, but how do you show up in authenticity is the real question. And as a leader, how do you make space for that authenticity? Yeah, it's important. So, yeah, that's how we do it.
So first of all, this topic of messiness, what you said, and keeping your house clean, right? I think that is something it's actually a part we can't avoid. If we go into leadership position, if we go, I don't know, if you're a politician or whatever, actually that has to be done. Cleaning the house, doing exercises to understand, wait, am I now in so that's what I'm getting what you're saying. Am I now in my, let's say, ego part? Am I now in my ego? Is there something unclean? Like, is there something like off in that energy? Or am I coming from the heart? That's what I'm not like, that's right. Am I coming from the heart? And it's already in the everyday life so difficult. I can see that also where my ego and what my patterns are. It's to practice that and not to go right now. My brother moved in with me, so there I can notice a lot of triggers and like, okay, wait, now I'm going into disconnection. Now I'm going, my language is changing. How's that? Where does that come from? And then to go straight away into a conversation with them and be like, okay, something is off. Something is, let's talk about that. What is that? To clean the air and again be like, okay, this is pure. And I love what you said, that you are meeting together with your team and you clean the air. And of course, for that, it needs to be a safe container and a way of open and not to be like, okay, now I'm straight away triggered from what you say, but I'm opening, I'm listening with my heart. And is that something, and then the question, in what way can leaders integrate that in a similar way with their teams? And in what setting? Is there something you recommend when you work with leaders and teams?
To be able to do the inner homework where you can really be aware and remember the head center, even though it has that unconscious part, it has the conscious part. Yeah. And we recognize consciousness a lot through meditation. That's why Tibetan Buddhists do it, as well as, of course, the Hindus and, the Tao does it. Many different spiritual kind of practices offer meditation. And the bringing consciousness and sitting in meditation helps you to develop awareness, and awareness is like a muscle, and awareness creates choice. And so in the moment that you feel that you're out of integrity, or that you're losing your sense of self, or that you're making it right for someone else, or you're disrespecting your own boundaries, or you're disempowering yourself in some way as you're leading or guiding people, that inner homework that you're doing will continue to support you so that you can keep fine-tuning your own internal, let's say, instrument of alignment, so that how you speak, you can go, oh, I was a bit harsh there. I need to take a step back, reframe, and then see if I can name it a different way. That does take practice. Holding teams is depending on the environment that you're in, if it's more on the company corporate versus the, let's say, the retreat and personal development spaces, because it's very different, of course. But holding teams is what I often do, and this is around the head center, is awareness. And the head center also has where we often carry that personality structure. And the personality structures, gosh, we have quite a few of them. And you're going to learn that actually in the facilitators training. We do a big deep dive into that. Because when you're sitting around, let's say, in a space together as a team, you might have the introvert, the extrovert. You might have the person who's the alpha who wants to talk all the time. And then you might have another person who's kind of not present or disassociated. Or you might have another person who's anxious and fearful and, nervy, and you might have another person who's a pleaser who just wants to please you no matter what you say. And you've got all these different kinds of personalities sitting in your team. And maybe you've got an objective that you want to do as a team, right? Whether it's meet a deadline, a goal, a milestone, an intention. And you want to support that. Let's use the metaphor of the boat. Everybody's in the boat together. Everybody feels seen. Everybody feels heard. Everybody feels recognized for their talents, their skill sets, and who they are as a human being. And then you come in, and how you hold yourself and how you are embodied in yourself is going to quite quickly show people if they feel safe and if they feel seen by you and recognized by you. But not only that, the big one is, can you hold them? So if I come in as a leader and I'm very soft voice and I'm very, oh yeah, hi, then people won't feel like, hey, you can really hold me. If I come really bossy and power over here and power, people won't feel safe to come up with a new idea and innovation and blah, blah, blah. But if I come from an empowered place inside of myself, not power over you, but empowered, yeah, I'm more liable to feel relaxed in who I am and also relaxed in other people shining and other people coming with new ideas and other people suggesting things. I'm going to create more of a safe-based culture and a trust-based culture. And ultimately, what you want to create is a culture that is bonding together and that they can really feel connected, so that you even make space and time for your team to do that, not just on some holiday retreat that you do as a team, but throughout the week in different intervals whenever you do meet, is to find ways to, even how you talk with them, people already feel at rest or feel connected. They can feel you. And by the way, when we go into the heart-led leading, it means I'm connected to my heart. Yeah. So for me to lead from that place, even now as I speak to you and I speak to your listeners, people will start to feel invited. Someone's really there. She's present. I can feel her. And that invites them to go a bit deeper. And then the bonding happens every single day when we come together, because I become an embodiment of it, and more people will want to model that in themselves. And they will learn how, and by your guidance, just by you being a living, breathing form of it. Yeah. And so the team coming together and how you lead them starts, every piece of practice that you do starts with you. And then, of course, if you lose patience, they're going to feel it. If you lose your grounding, they're going to feel it. Yeah.
Yes, yes, and that's why it's so important, right? To what you were also saying, it always starts with yourself, with your practices, with your routine, with taking care of your body, with doing things that relax you, that make you feel alive, and yeah, connecting with you. And from that place, you can connect to the team and to someone else. And what you were just saying, let me see how I can formulate this question. It's this what I see leaders struggling as well is this balance between closeness, right? Creating safety, but also form of distance, like this balance between closeness and distance. Yeah, let's call it a bit of a game, but yeah, you need to find a balance, not being maybe too close, but also not being too far. So I work with leaders on both spectrum, on people who like even are friends, they go party with them, they go out with them, and then, okay, maybe they have to give somebody critical feedback. How do they do that? Or people who say, no, I'm completely distanced. I don't even know how to, I don't want to show any weakness. I don't want to show any like emotions. I don't want to, no, I want to have this distance style. But it's about finding the balance. And how does one do that? How does a
Yeah,
leader do that?
I
Finding
would
this
say
balance.
to that, to find a balance as a leader in how you interact with your team is really going to be unique for each individual, because some are more outgoing and gregarious and want to make that connection. Some are maybe more introverted, like their own kind of space and time, which I anyway think is a good thing, to have space and time for yourself. I personally, how I do it is, for me, my team is kind of like a family. We really have a connection. That connection is important because it's one of my values: connection, community, communication, collaboration, creativity, and contact. Yeah. So those things are really important to me. So because connection is important, at the same time, it's not I get my connection fulfilled only outside of myself, but also connection with myself. So the balance, there's a nice healthy balance between when am I in connection with myself. So that means I'm able to spend some time alone with myself. And I love having connection with my team. So I have that as well. And it's like an ebb and flow. It's not all one-sided. It's a little bit of this and also a little bit of myself. Yeah. And then also connection for me is such a beautiful springboard for connection to life, connection to having yes to life, connection to my feelings, connection to joy and so many things. Yeah. But I'm very aware that I allow myself to come close to the people that I work with. I love it. We share openly. And then there will be certain areas of my own intimate life with my partner that I will keep as mine. And that's beautiful. And it doesn't take away from my ability to bond in a beautiful way with my team and still be very open. Oh, I'm having a bit of a blue day today, or I'm not feeling the motivation today. I might need to take some space and time, and to be vulnerable and be open about that. Or, guys, I could actually just use a hug right now. I don't have many words, and just to be very sincere with that, and hug or hold hand or whatever's comfortable for people. But that kind of way of being honest and open creates that authenticity, and people just, our life is so short on this planet, Vera, that we long for purpose, connection, and meaning. At the end of the day, now more than ever, people are more interested in purpose-oriented than just profit-oriented, because you can have the big house and feel empty inside, empty in your own house. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I wish and I hope that with this work that you are doing, and also I'm starting to do, yeah, that more and more people will, yeah, exactly, embrace all of the emotions and go more into connection. It's also very courageous to be like, I'm going into connection, or with my team, I'm sharing what's going on inside of me. I'm allowed to say, hi, I'm feeling insecure, or hey, phew, I noticed there was a trigger, and I noticed there's something that's standing in the way between you and me. And to be courageous, because as you said, we only have this one life. We only have this one life. And I think to be aware of that, and also the responsibility that I have becoming my own leader, understanding the power that we have as a leader to influence the team, influence not only the team, but also when they come home and then to their family and to their children, and all of this, like this ripple effect. And I really wish for leaders to understand that more. And yeah, that's
Absolutely.
so important. Yes. I could ask you so many more questions, to be honest. I would also really love for you to talk more about your upcoming leadership and facilitation training, and what leaders will learn in this training, and also what they already heard today. So what is it also that they gain out
Wonderful.
of this training?
Yeah,
So let's talk about
absolutely.
that.
So in that training, people will have whether it doesn't matter if they're new and they've never done it, of course, or they've already are leading a business, a company. They will always, of course, have a possibility to really deepen their skill sets. Yeah, and it's designed in such a way that at any entry level you can come at any level. It's beautiful. Yeah, because the first point of that journey is that it's really a deep dive into self and how you self lead, and to look at some of the barriers of beliefs that you have along your own kind of relationship with yourself. And then we will go into the kind of primary tools that I use in the training, which is around head center, heart center, belly center, the body, helping people to be trauma informed. Even if you're never thinking of ever going to work in that kind of field at all, you're going to be able to know when you're sitting at the table why this person is in anxiety, why this woman is disassociated, that guy's having a shortness of breath, and how to hold them, or how to give them the next question, and how to guide them as a leader. Yeah, so it's beneficial in all environments because we're human, and that human factor never goes away. And then we will, of course, have a big piece around communication style and how we learn different styles of communication, especially oriented around that communication that supports connection and supports inspiration and really gets people motivated to also want to move with you or flow with you or in themselves as well. So there's a whole tool there that is a download. But what I love about the training, of course, is everything we're learning is around bringing it into action. It's a big laboratory in a way for where we get to do this work together. And the other one, of course, is around how we work with different personality structures, the shadow side of leading, as well as, all sorts of personalities that we are going to be dealing with in leadership, whether it's the narcissist or the pleaser, the collapsed person, and all sorts of things, and also your own personality. And it will help you. Everything that we learn in this will help you in your personal life as well as your professional life, because it's so deep in how we work with the psychology and the kind of engineering leadership in a way, and facility. And if you're wanting to bring this into your work environment, great. Or if you're wanting to even start creating your own seminars and retreats, you're going to learn a lot of how to hold people, how to work with the group dynamics or team dynamics. That's going to be very powerful for, how do I balance the field? How do I harmonize disputes and conflicts? And how do I create resolution? And especially when we go into the trauma-informed pieces, how do I do repair and so on? So there's going to be 4 modules to this training. It's actually 6, maybe I say it like this, is 12 days of physical location done in 2 parts of 6 and 6. And then there's recorded pieces where you get the download of the theory so that we can go straight into putting the work into action when we meet. So it's quite a beautiful deep dive into leading and facilitating. And it starts in October 2025. I mean, every year we're doing it, but this is the big one. Yeah. Great.
Yes. Wow. In the
Yes,
Netherlands and Mexico, I think, right?
we didn't see Mexico coming, but it just exploded there. We started deep dive there, and
Mm-hmm.
it exploded, and we sold
Happened.
out deep
Wow.
dive, and it was amazing. So, and there's a lot of people in the Netherlands going to be coming to the training, but it's also an international, so there'll be people flying in for this, and then that's why we set it apart 6 days and a 5-month
Wow.
spread, and then another 6 days. And it's just amazing. What a beautiful, and it's a community you join, and yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, like already, like I also really looking forward, I can only say that I think a field is opened where I felt that for myself, like a field is opening where I can really dive into myself and also see some parts there and see where it's holding me back from really leading my life and where I'm standing in my own way. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to join. And also, I think what is interesting for the listeners is that in September we're gonna have a webinar for our webinar where people can already get a
Yes.
teaser. Or how do you say this? Like get a taste of you. And also, this will be about the body, about leadership, and they can dive into this webinar and see how the work, like the work with you, ask you questions. So and then decide, of course, to join the facilitation
Yes.
training, because it's a nice way to get to know you and to
Yeah.
see how they can work with you. And all of this, of course, will be put down in the show notes. Also, I will put the link to the facilitation training and everything. So yeah, I'm really grateful, super, super grateful that for this opportunity to also to the webinar, to speak with you today and also continue the journey with you. If there's like one thing that the listener should take away from today's episode, and yeah, what do you think? What
That's a
would
good
it be?
question. And what comes to me right now as you say that is, I believe one of the biggest fallacies that we have somehow been listening to in our heads is that we are not enough. And when we really get to know that it's been the biggest lie we've been telling ourselves, that we're not worthy of whatever that might be, we can start to go past that story and start to step into that place of I have what it takes and I am enough. And ultimately, when people come out of that facilitators training, they learn that and have an embodied experience that I have something to offer, that I am enough. And whether you are already in the environment of leading or not, that you can have a deeper sense of an embodied experience and it's integrated. It's a big one that we can actually live and experience in our life to really feel that who I am is enough and that what I have to offer matters. And yeah, that's what I really want for people who step into this kind of
Yes,
work and step into the fullness of their potential.
that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Mhm.
I can really feel that. All right, Rupda, thank you so much for your time. I really loved our conversation and how it flowed. I love the energy with you. I feel so comfortable with you. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to what's gonna come next.
Thank you for
And
having
yes,
me,
thank
Vera.
you so much.
It was an honor. Thank you, Beauty.